Okay, there we go. Kunai, everyone. Hi there. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Hi. I know we just saw each other last night, everyone, but it's good to say hi. This stream's been a long time coming. I've had to put this one off for a really long time, so I feel bad, but we're finally doing it, so we're gonna finally talk about it. So, let's not keep waiting any longer. We're gonna talk about Monster Hunter World. We're gonna talk about Monster Hunter in general, but a lot about Monster Hunter World. Because Kunai has some opinions on it. If you've seen the thumbnail, yeah, it's kind of obvious I don't really like this game. And I'll get into that first. Because if you hear someone say that they don't like Monster Hunter World, that's kind of a confusing statement, because from the outside, World is not a bad game. And Kunai doesn't think it's a bad game. It's a game that, while I don't like, I don't think is a bad game. It's kind of like trying to compare it to something. I'm trying to think of a comparison. I guess something that would, for like a more modern example, I guess it would be something kind of like Fortnite or Fall Guys or something like that, where they're not technically bad games, but they're just games I don't really like. Because they work and they can be fun for some people, and they do what they're supposed to do very well, but they're just not games that I really like playing. And World is kind of in the same boat. It definitely is a Monster Hunter game, and it's not surprising that it's Capcom's best-selling game. I know a lot of people expect it to be something like Mega Man or Devil May Cry or Resident Evil or something like that. That's more well known. I'm stumbling over my words today. I'm really sorry. A lot of people expect it to be a game that Capcom is more well known for, like something like Street Fighter, Mega Man, DMC, or Resident Evil. But it's probably World still, if I had to guess. It was World for certain at one point, but then I don't know if it might have gotten overtaken by another game. I'm not sure. But I don't think it was Rise. It was. Either way, it's a very popular game. It's a very well-sold game and very well-received. Kunai just doesn't really like it. And a big reason for that is it's trying to do a lot of the same stuff that Monster Hunter games from the past did, but it feels like it's watered down, if that makes any sense. Like, if you look at the weapons, that's the big one. Later game weapons and some of the stuff in Iceborne look better. Not all of them, but a lot of the weapons in World are just the same, like, metal or bone design with specific monster parts put onto them, which that's not how they used to be. Like, I think Rise rectified a lot of that, but it also has its own share of problems. But for World, like, a lot of the weapon and not as much the armor design, because a lot of the armor designs in World kind of harken back to Monster Hunter 1 and some of the older games before 3 or not 3, Try, yes, like overhauled the art, the monster designs and stuff. And while some of the World designs do harken back to that, some of the newer ones for newer monsters don't look great. Like, even, I'm trying to think, some of them do look good. Like Legiana, I think, is a good armor design and a good general design for a monster from World. But there are also others where it's like Paolumu, Gyarados, and even Kulu, where it's just like, this could be from anything. It does not feel inherently Monster Hunter. Gyarados is less so of that because that's just brown lava seal. But Kulu is just very generic bird dinosaur, which a lot of them you can make the argument for, well, that's a lot of Monster Hunter monsters. And some of that is true, some of that's also not. Like a lot of the dromes and the Aggie monsters like Jaggy, Baggy, and Roggy were clearly like raptor designs and stuff. And I don't know if you guys can hear that, but someone's just this really loud bass outside. Hopefully you can't, but whatever. But my point is, like, a lot of the weapons are one thing, the armor and monsters are another. But I think the biggest thing for Kunai and why I don't like this game world, I mean, it's just like the design of the game itself. World is a very narratively focused game. Now, despite what people will say, Monster Hunter games always have had a story. And while it's never not been unimportant, like the story is important in almost every Monster Hunter game, the way that it is in World, where it's so like heavy-handed, like there's cutscenes for almost everything, it's very, I don't know, it just feels off, like something just doesn't quite feel right. And some of that might just be because I'm just adjusted to how Monster Hunter used to be. Because for the longest time, from Tri to Generations U, the graphics of the game versus the cutscenes have always been, there's always been like a bit of a difference. I think 3 Ultimate is the best example where the game looks like a PS2 or Wii game, just maybe a little bit spruced up, especially if it's 3 Ultimate on the Wii U. And the in-game stuff looks good and looks fine, but the cutscenes, like the intro cutscene for 3 Ultimate, depending on whether you watch it on a Wii U or a 3DS, is really high resolution and like really like high detail and high quality. It's just that the rest of the game doesn't look like that, which is both a negative and a positive because it makes the cutscenes more important, I would say. It makes it so that when there's an actual cutscene, it has weight. And I think Generations actually did this best because for all like the big 4 monsters like Aslos, Mizu, Gammoth, and Glavenus, they all get their own like high-res cutscenes to like show that like, hey, these are important and very like, these are monsters you're probably going to want to farm, and they're going to be tougher than what you're generally going to fight aside from Elder Dragons. And there's stuff that will probably have the best gear for whatever rank of the game that you're on. And it's just, so when every monster has a high-res cutscene, and the game itself is just in higher resolution, like pre-rendered or otherwise, it kind of just makes everything feel less important. Like, I know that's a weird criticism. I know that's a very weird thing to say, that the game looking better is a negative. But it's just, I don't know, you could say that the same is, it's sort of like a Dark Souls effect. Like, I hate using that comparison, but it's true. Like, stuff where the bosses have, like, an actual cutscene, like, before or even, like, during the fight, for, like, face transitions or start out. It makes it feel like it's more important. Because, for example, when you're fighting something like Ancient Wyvern in DS3, there's no cutscenes, no fanfare, he just kind of swoops in, does whatever. Same with, like, Crystal Sage and Deacons. But then when you fight something like Abyss Watchers, Lothric and Lorien, kind of Osiris, but not as much, because he only has one cutscene. Or something like Gale, where he has his intro cutscene and then midway cutscene. It just feels like there's like more like importance and more significance. And then when every monster has that, when you first encounter them in Monster Hunter World, it just doesn't feel as important. Granted, it's not every monster. I'm pretty sure when Jagras is introduced, for example, he just kind of comes in and it's just like, oh yeah, that's Jagras. Well, stuff like Kulu, Puke, or whatever, and they all have like some sort of cutscene or something that like shows off like, oh, look at this dangerous new monster, and then you just beat it as easily as something else, which, that's another point, too. World is very easy. World feels like it's a very easy Monster Hunter game. Not as much as something for, like, I haven't played Rise, but from what I've heard, Rise is very, very easy, too. But I did play World before Iceborne. Well, I played World before Iceborne came out, and then when Iceborne did come out, I didn't ever get a chance to update it and get it. So I still played World after Iceborne came out, but I was still doing base World. And I'm just gonna say this. Aside from cheap bosses like Leshen or Behemoth, World feels really easy. Like, the fact that they have to add in Tempers and Arch-Tempers, which are basically still the same monster, just with an extra coat of paint. Which, yeah, you can make the argument, oh, well, that's just Apex and Deviants. There's Apexes and Deviants at least have the courtesy to have new moves and at least have a gameplay mechanic where they look different enough. Like, Hyper, I think, is the worst monster, like, affliction or, like, monster type from Generations. Like, the Hyper monsters were dumb. It's just like, oh, hit the glowy point to do more damage, but you take more damage if you hit that. Like, no. Like, Apex and Frenzy was way better. Deviants were okay. Like, they at least gave you new armor sets and new weapons, which were cool, and they helped fill up your hunter gauge more, so that was an incentive, which, like, that makes sense. But stuff like Arch-Tempers and Tempers is just dumb. They brought back Apexes for Rise, but they're different from what they used to be. They're basically Deviants, which, meh. It's just weird thinking about Monster Hunter because Wilds is coming out soon, and I don't know. I want to be excited for it, but it's like, I can't really play it. I don't have a good PC, and considering how graphically intensive that game is going to be, I don't know, the more I see it, the more I just think it would be really cool if Capcom ported over Tri and 4U and Generations over to Steam. That would be a really cool thing to do. 4U would probably be harder. But, like, even if not 4U, Freedom Unite, that would be neat. Because as it stands, those games are just locked to their system that they were put on. Like, Generations is locked to the Switch and 3DS. 3U is locked to... I mean, aside from, obviously, like, emulation, but, like, I meant, like, officially, because something I don't think emulation is worthwhile to have, but I kind of... It's one of those things where it's like, I like this product enough and where it comes from that I would be fine buying it again. Because that's how it was with 3 Ultimate. Like, I got it on 3DS way back in the day. Way back when Kunai was a very little fox. I got 3U on 3DS. Played it, loved it. And then when I finally got a Wii U, I was like, do I really want to buy the same game twice just so I can play it on the TV? And ultimately I decided yeah. Because it was worth it and it was cool. But if it's not obvious, my favorite Monster Hunter game is probably 4 Ultimate. I like some of the stuff in Generations, but I also don't love it. I hate that it doesn't have G rank from the get, which the same is true for World and Rise, but you know, they eventually got it. But 4EU, I think, like 4 Ultimate, I think is definitely the best Monster Hunter game overall. It has the most content, it has the most challenge to fairness ratio, I would say. some of the weapons are more broken than others, but there's also just broken, stupid, hard monsters like 140 guild quests, apexes, and whatever. So there's just enough where it's like, yeah, these weapons and stuff are broken, but you can also make pretty broken builds. And I think they did kind of bring that back with World by having skills just be tied to stats instead, and then eventually adding the transmog feature from Generations to it. I think 4U is where mixed sets as a whole kind of just blossomed and became like the main dominating thing, where it's like you don't want to have like whole armor sets, because while they do generally have good skills, they also have some, like usually a downside skill or like one bad skill. So you want to instead just find the best pieces from various sets and put them together to get the skills and stats that you want. Sorry, my throat is kind of getting ragged. It's later. I pushed the stream back to 4 from 1 because I had chores to do, but now it's just kind of late and I'm feeling tired, which is dumb because I slept in today. And I only slept in because I stayed up playing Dark Souls 2. So yeah. I'm not gonna say that people are wrong to be excited for Wilds or for liking World or Rise. It's just like a dichotomy issue. It's like there's clearly like a divide between eras for Monster Hunter games, and if you like older Monster Hunter games, you're kind of SOL for the newer releases because they're not going to be the same as what you remember them being. Like, there's another YouTuber who's talked about this topic, JFJ. He did a really good video on Monster Hunter games, old versus new, and I think he kind of just puts my feelings into it a lot better. If I was more comfortable doing React content stuff of other people's videos that weren't just public domain stuff, I'd say we watch it on stream, but I don't want to do that. I just kind of feel like rude to do without asking in the middle of the stream. But yeah, his video on it, I'll link it after, I'll put the link to it in the description after stream's done. Because I do think it's a really good video and he makes a lot of good points. But yeah, it just puts it into perspective, because it's like World and Rise are games where the focus is on fighting monsters and just doing whatever. It's more of a boss rush type game than anything else. Where in other games, like Generations less so, like I think that one is a great example, because the game does give you the option to get all the farming out of the way so you can just fight things with like a DLC pack, but you don't have to use it if you don't want to. And then 4 and 3U, like there's nothing like that, so you have to anyway. But just like the older games put a focus on where you have to farm, you have to gather your stuff, you have to get everything ready and set up. Because if you don't, you're not gonna win. If you go in just gung-ho, without a care in the world, just doing whatever, and you're just not careful, you're not going to win. Or if you do win, it's gonna be more of a struggle than it would be if you had just practiced and prepared yourself instead. Whereas in World and Rise, like you have base camps all over, you can warp to any of them, which that's not a bad change. I don't mind the warping to various base camps, but it also de-incentivizes you to just be better and play better, because you spent all this time and effort going to this area to go and track down the monster, and now, oh, you died, so you have to go all the way back, and it's just, it makes you want to play better so that you can stay on the monster's toes and just keep following and fighting and just not lose track of your progress. Whereas in World and whatever, oh, if you die and get sent further back from where the monster is, you can just warp to a base camp. It's just, I don't know. Like, it's a preference thing, I guess, but, you know, like, again, it's a quality of life change too. Like, it makes sense for bigger open world maps where the areas don't just have a loading screen separating them, to have multiple base camps that you can warp to. I don't know, maybe if you could only do it while you are at your other base camp, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. But the fact that you can do it from anywhere on the map is, I don't know, I think there just needs to be a limiting feature. The Great Wire Bugs and Rise kind of change that and work that way, because you can fast travel and go to cover various, like, large distances with those, but they're only in certain spots of the map, so. The Rise has its own other problems, because you don't even have to, like, eat a meal in Rise. You can just find all the birds and get all your stat buffs that way instead. Like, the Dango is definitely helpful, but it's not required, like, eating is in every other game. Even, like, man, like, in older games too, like, the crafting stuff, like, it sucked more when you didn't get the items that you wanted, and you spent all this time farming. Whereas in other games, you can just pick up an herb and, oh, you have a potion. Pick up honey, oh, you have potions in your inventory. It automatically makes you a mega potion. It's just like, why? But, like, I understand that it's more convenient to do it that way, but at the same time, part of, like, the challenge of Monster Hunter is resource management. You have to be careful and smart with your resources and your gear and your items, because if you play bad and get hurt too often, you have to keep slamming down your potion and keep drinking and wasting stuff that you spent all this time gathering. It's gonna make every hunt harder. So it's just like, you want to play better, you want to do better, and it's just like more incentive to just not be bad at the game. Whereas in the newer ones, it's like, it's okay if you make mistakes, you just might have to spend more time gathering stuff, which, I don't know. Like, punishing game design has its advantages and disadvantages. Because if the game is too hard and it's too punishing, it makes you just not want to play. But if it's too easy, you don't have a sense of challenge either. And, like, for older Monster Hunter games, I think that is a big thing, because, like, in older games, the challenge to fairness ratio is just way too on the challenging side, because in Monster Hunter 1, you don't even have a blocking attack, or blocking, you don't even have an attack button in Monster Hunter 1, you attack with a joystick. So, it's like, oh boy, you better make that hit count, because otherwise you're gonna have to deal with these awkward old controls from a PS2 game from 2001. Whereas the newer games, like, I think, like I said, 3U, aside from the swimming sections, is probably the most fair. Like, 3U and Freedom Unite. Because World is too easy, Rise is too easy. 4 has plenty of stuff to give you more of an advantage, but you also have to work for it too, because some of the later game monsters in 4 are just a juggernaut and I have to fight, because they just have really high HP and high damages, and even if you have really good sets, you just are going to get curb stomped if you're not careful. Whereas in 3, it's definitely challenging, but you also feel like you can overcome most of it. Because, like, the swimming sections are kind of the only part where that falls short, because the swimming mechanics are just kind of awkward in that game. But when you're fighting anything that's on land, and you have to stay on land the entire time, that's when the game shines, because you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm gonna have to worry about awkward movement and doing stuff in the water, where I have to aim my swings with a sword to make sure I hit, because verticality is a thing. It's just, okay, I need to make sure I don't get hit, or I'm not in a weird position where I'm going to get hit. And it just rewards you for being careful, but it also rewards you if you're taking small risks, but just, you have to be careful and not overly commit to riskier gameplay styles. Hang on, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go blow my nose real quick. My nose is stuffy. Okay, back. Sorry about that. My allergies just get terrible in fall and winter. It's not as bad in summer or spring. It's just colder months. I just don't feel great. Yeah. Anyway. Getting back to the conversation topic. I think another big difference too, in as far as like game design goes for new and old Monster Hunter, it's just like the presentation of threat, I guess, if that makes... That's a weird sentence, but let me explain. So like, in older Monster Hunter games, like 3 Ultimate, you find the Gaiacris super duper early when you're not prepared or not even able to fight it. You can't even kill the Gaiacris in 3 Ultimate when you first meet it. You can do that in other games, like I'm pretty sure Monster Hunter 1, you can fight Rathalos early and beat it. You can fight Tiger. Good? Okay. I don't know what happened. My mic has been really finicky lately. Okay. Sorry. My mic has just not been great lately, and I don't know why. Sorry if it's been troubling this whole stream. I hope it's not been a pain, but it's picking up my inputs fine, but yeah. Back to the point. Because like in World, I'm trying to think, like, I guess Anjanath is the first monster that you really encounter super early, but it's like you're not really supposed to fight this just yet. It's not as much as like something like Rathalos or something. Like maybe even like Diablos or Tigrex. I don't think you fight Diablos super early, but it doesn't feel as much as a threat. And even then later on, I guess another one would be Basil, because I do. Well, no, it's the other thing too. Like, as much as like, because Basil is a threat in World, sort of. You can brute force it and make yourself fight Basil enough to get his parts and farm his armor. Because that's what I did when I first played. I just threw myself into expeditions where, oh, I don't have a limit on how many deaths I can have, so I'll just throw myself at this thing till I get his armor. And eventually, yeah, I did get Basil's gear super early, so I just had really good gear to curb stomp high rank through. But, like, another thing, like in 3 Ultimate, like, you fight the Gaiacris super early, can't kill it, and then eventually you do. They do this again in 3U in high rank, where it's where they introduce Devil Joe. It's a quest where you're just fighting Jagia, and you just have to go around hunting him, then you go to the area where Great Jackie usually is, and then, uh-oh, here's big guy, and I'm pretty sure he kills Great Jackie by jumping on him. Which, like, that kind of sets the tone for high rank as a whole. You're in constant danger and threat of this guy coming on to any quest and beating you senselessly, and the best thing for you to do, generally, is either run away or throw a dung bomb and get on with whatever it is you're supposed to do. That's typically how it is for the most part. Like, you don't ever feel confident or comfortable fighting Devil Joe until you pretty much beat Ivory, like Iacris. And even then, once you do, it's not exactly easy, because, like, Azure Athlos, Ivory Leggy Armor, both are weak to Dragon, so you don't want to use those. Your best bet is either going Bomb set with Brachy Armor and gear, or using Lightning and going with Zinogre, because it's... Well, actually, yeah, Zinogre has a really good armor set for 3 Ute. I almost said 3 YouTube, I'm sorry. 3 Ultimate, like, Zinogre's armor in high rank is really good. It has, I think, Challenger and Latent Power, but it also has Razor Sharp, so you can just wail on him without losing sharpness. Yeah, I use the dual blades to farm I said Diablos again. How can you tell Kunai is tired? Because he's rambling about Monster Hunter and saying the wrong monsters' names. Point is, just monsters that are big deals in older games were treated that way, whereas in newer games it's not really as much, because every monster gets a cutscene to introduce themselves to, and even monsters like, because I'm thinking to stuff in the world, even monsters like Gyros, Paolumu, Tizuyaku, like stuff that this is clearly not a threatening or hard fight for the area or where you're at in the game. Even those get like cutscenes to like show them off, and like, yeah, older monster games, like Monster Hunter games, like there was like some small cutscene, but it was typically in-game footage and not pre-rendered. So even though they had a cutscene, it wasn't super fancy or anything like that. Wow. In newer games, that's because the game is either has pre-rendered cutscenes where the graphics are just better. Everything looks like it's more like everything gets a cutscene, so everything looks the same, which is good for consistency and graphic quality, but it just doesn't feel as important. Stuff that shouldn't feel dangerous is less so, and stuff that isn't does, so it's just like there's not much of a progression scale. Like everything kind of just feels like it's like at a flat point, and then eventually for some stuff, like some Elder Dragons and some fights, like in World, sure, like Fatalis, Kushala, and Teostra and Kalahazak all have like cutscenes that stick out a little bit more and do a good job at making those monsters feel important. Like, same with the Nurg too, but a lot of times the threat level for various monsters feels about the same, so you don't really know how to gauge how ready you are for the fight. I'm trying to think of what else I want to talk about for those games, because I talk about the item gathering, game mechanics, and just presentation. I guess moveset for characters stuff too, because in World, your character can do a lot more stuff in World, like Slinger not included, Clutch Claw not included. While in the older games, you felt a lot more restricted. Like, eventually, yeah, you got mounting in 4U, and just a general movement speed increase in that game. So you had more options in there going forward. And then Generations, they introduced Hunter Arts, which, while neat, you don't have to use them. Like, they're generally helpful, and you won't have a reason why you shouldn't use them, but you don't have to if you don't want to. But in World, just weapons have new moves that are integral to their kit and are just like a part of their natural combo string. Like great sword, for example, that super big, heavy, like triple slam, like that is part of its natural moveset and combo string for attacking now. It's not that you can't use it if you don't want to, it's you're probably going to use it even if you don't mean to, just because it's part of its moveset. And it's a really strong, heavy hitting move, so you're probably gonna want to use it anyway, even if you don't want to. Granted, yeah, Greatsword has always had really heavy hitting moves, and that's one thing. But like, Longsword is another one, because now it has that leaping strike, and you come back down and does big damage, or you have your sheathing stuff, and you can do that too. And Longsword didn't used to have that, not outside of like Valor and Generations, but it's just, I don't know. It's not bad that they're giving more moves. It's just that the moves that they are giving them just feel kind of broken. And like, even then, I don't have as much room to complain, because Kunai almost always played Sword and Shield for Monster Hunter, because it just always felt like the safest, generally good option, because you can use items while your weapon's out, you can block and do whatever, and your damage is still relatively good because you attack fast, but not as fast as something like Dual Blades, but there's less risk than Dual Blades too. It's just, I don't know. I'd say Kunai is old, it just misses how games used to be, but I'm not that old, which is why it's weird. It's like, yeah, it could be a case of like, oh, change bad, why change, wah, wah. But I don't know. Cause like, from what I've seen of Wilds, that focus move thing looks kinda dumb. It doesn't really do much from what I've seen of it. And like, maybe if you use it right in a certain way, it could help, but I don't know. But either way, we have been talking for about 37 minutes, give or take, because it took about 10 minutes to get here. Sorry about that. So I don't know if I want to wrap up just yet. I guess I'll talk about what I want to do for this time while I have time to stream, and what I'm gonna try to do, because I've thought about what I want to do when I'm not streaming and recording stuff, because I haven't been recording anything, but I don't know. I have an idea for one stream or video that I want to do, but it's kind of embarrassing, so I don't really want to talk about it too much. But I don't know. I think I'll just sleep on it and think about it more later. But regardless, I'm gonna have to make a thumbnail for next stream sometime. But either way, thank you all for coming in and just chatting and saying hi today. I know it's kind of boring not having gameplay streams, however, I wish I had a better computer so we could actually play stuff. Sadly, it's just not in the cards right now. Well, maybe not. I'll see if I can run it in full screen with my laptop, because I installed Dark Souls 2 the other day, and I've been playing it a bit. So if I can record, I doubt I can stream it, but if I can record Dark Souls 2 footage, that might be something we can do, because that game runs really well on my laptop. But yeah, that's just a tentative thing, and we'll have to see it before we do anything. But either way, thank you guys for coming in, and I'll see you next time. Kunai.